Hi, and welcome back to Actors Turn Directors on Eliciting the Best Performance from an Actor. Jodie Foster Interview Part 3. Jodie was one of 10 generous A-list directors who started out as actors and were generous enough with their time to teach me about the actor-director relationship, how to elicit a best performance from an actor, something I was insecure about prior to directing my first film. We're going to pick up where we left off in interview part 2 with Jodie Foster, which I will read from my book, Actors Turn Directors. And in this segment, Jodie will discuss her casting process. If you find this content valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. Question: can you share some insight into your casting process? How did you go about casting the Fred character in Tate, for example? We were just trying to find somebody who was really appropriate for the character. We couldn't find that person in the acting community, so we looked to schools. My casting director, Avi Kaufman, found Adam Handbeard in a little elementary school in New York City. She simply asked if anybody had been in school plays, and he raised his hand. And he looked a lot like me, which was one of the most compelling things. Abby also found Max Pomerantz from Searching for Bobby Fischer. Abby's just an amazing person and an amazing casting director. We have an intimate and productive working relationship. We sit around saying, why would this person be right? And then we start defining the characters, what it is we want, what it is we don't want, and learning our movie little by little. My collaboration with my casting director is a very important element to me in the making of a film. Question: how did you happen to select her as your casting director? Jodie: Peggy Rosinski, my co-producer, had worked with Abby many times before. They knew each other from when they had both worked with John Sayles. Abby had done a movie that I thought had some of the best casting I'd ever seen, which was Miss Firecracker with Alfre Woodard, Holly Hunter, Tim Robbins, and Scott Glenn, none of whom were very well known at the time. I was looking for great naturalistic acting that could also be comedic, which is a very tricky thing to find. Either you find people who are very comedic and exaggerated and feel like cliches, or you find people who are very dramatic and don't really have the timing for comedy. It's very challenging and hard to do both. Question: what about the casting of Harry Connick Jr. as Teddy in Tate? After all, he's a singer and not known as an actor. That was a long process. I really wanted something very specific. We must have gone through 100 guys, from the biggest to the smallest, and finally, Evie and I were sitting around one day looking through the newspaper when I saw that Harry Connick Jr. was playing somewhere. And I said, what about Harry? And she said, yeah, what about Harry? So we called him up and he just blew us away. He was exactly what we were looking for, which we couldn't find in a young actor. But the studio, unfortunately, was a little resistant, and our producer was a little resistant because at the time, neither Harry nor Adam had ever made a movie before. But once they saw Harry's screen test, their fears were certainly allayed. What about Diane Wist? She was brought on fairly early. We asked for a lot of script changes and we rewrote the character for her. The first screenplay was very promising, but it was very much a black comedy in the spirit of Dead Again, another of Scott Frank's original screenplays. I love that side of him, but I don't know how to make campy films. I only know how to make very sincere movies. And if there's humor, but I'm not interested in black humor at all. So the rewriting was done to change the tone of the film from an edgy, dark, black humored fraternity house movie to a movie about a child who's torn between two women, which gave it the human conflict it needed. It became a much more feminine story than it was before. Question. Tell me about the impressive ensemble casting in Home for the Holidays. Jodie. Our focus first centered on casting the family members. The producer, Peggy, Evie, and myself sat down and said, let's make a wish list of people who are not necessarily big stars, but actors we love who are absolutely right for the film. Then let's use the Woody Allen approach. Call up the actors, send them the script, and say, this is our movie. We love you. We cannot imagine anyone else. Please make it. We always wanted Holly Hunter, but never imagined anyone else for the role. So I just sent her the screenplay before we had a finalized draft, and said, I hope you have available in November. And she called me back the next day and said, when do we start? Once we had Holly, it was much easier for the other actors to realize there was going to be a real ensemble film. We then cast Anne Bancroft, Charlie Durning, and Robert Downey Jr. Question. How did you choose Geraldine Chaplin? She was tremendous. Jodie. Yeah, she was an odd choice because Geraldine is the least like her character of any of the people in the film. When her name came up, I thought it would be interesting off the wall casting, so we went for her, and I'm glad we did. She brought many surprises to the role. With Steve Guttenberg's character, on the other hand, we never thought of anybody but Steve, yet we just never thought he'd do it. But when we called him up, he just said yes, sure. We thought Dallin McDermott was great looking and really had a great leading man presence, but he was one of the last people we brought on because he wasn't really a member of the family. I was very pleased with his performance. He served a different purpose than the rest of the family. He had a different tone, smoother, saner, and more balanced. He wasn't a part of their world, so he didn't have to get all stressed and weirded out. He was exactly what Claudia, played by Holly Hunter, needed: somebody fearless, sane, and easy. Do you videotape actors? Jody, sometimes, although I don't really like to tape them because people look different on film than they look on video and in real life. Video can be misleading if you're looking at it to see what somebody will look like on film. But in the absence of film, video gives you some idea. Question. Do you use video assist while shooting? Jody, I find video monitors distracting and offensive. They work for framing, but I like to be by the camera for my actors. So other than absolutely technical issues, I think video assist is really destructive. Question. On the average, how many actors do you see for a part before casting it? Jody. It just depends. When somebody's right, you know it instinctively. Sometimes it's the first actor who walks through the door. Sometimes it's number 100 on the list. Claire Danes, for example, was the only actor we saw for the role of Kit. We never considered anyone else. She came in, we met her, and said, that's it. For the part of Russell, which ended up being played by David Strathairn, we saw many people because it was very hard role. You don't know whether to play the drama or the comedy, and it takes great astute actor to be able to do both and not betray one or the other. Finally, we threw our hands up in the air and said, you know, we've always wanted David, so why don't we go for him? Do you cast your extras personally, Jody? Response: We had an extra casting person, but I'm very concerned about who they are. I'm pretty much involved in everything, and casting the extras is very, very important. Question: Do you have any keys to successful casting? Jody: It is so difficult to be an actor, to wear your best outfit, to wait in a room with all these other people who are up for the same job, wondering if you're good enough, and then you have to go in front of the casting director, the producer, and the director and bare your soul. So to me, it's very important that actors are given respect so they can carry on with dignity. I spend a lot of my time talking to them about other things, making them feel comfortable no matter who they are, because I've been on the other side and find it offensive not to be treated well in the casting session. A question, Jody, do you check out actors with other directors to see what sort of experiences those directors have had with them? Jody, sometimes I am much more concerned with the technicians. I definitely researched the technician's references. Jodie, as an actress, how did you prepare for your roles? Did you create extensive backstories for your characters? Jodie, no, not extensive, just what is pertinent to the movie. Certainly not on Taxi Driver. I mean, I was young, it was all pretty much spelled out in the screenplay. Basically, I do as much research as I absolutely need to because I feel that you need to be singular about what you're trying to say and about how you communicate that. Sometimes you can get bogged down by too much information, which can cloud the sparseness and the classical quality of what you're trying to accomplish. Question: Do you feel that theatrical stage training is important to a film actor? Absolutely not. It's not insignificant or unimportant, but it's no more important than loving to cook or reading a lot of art history or listening to rock music. I'm not being disparaging. I'm not a trained actress. I just feel that training your common sense is more important. This brings to an end the Jodie Foster interview part 3. Part 4 is coming up soon. If you find these interviews valuable, please like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to engaging with you again with the Jodie Foster interview part 4. Thank you very much for tuning in.